Welcome to another episode of Office Hours, the recap, where we go a little deeper into the discussion that we had in our Discord room over on chatbotbuilder.ai. Let's get started.
Welcome to the deep dive. We're doing something a bit different today, kind of digging into the highlights from a recent mastermind group office hour.
Yeah, that was back on May 21st.
Right, May 21st. And it was packed with stuff relevant for anyone building chatbots or, working with AI tools generally.
Oh, absolutely. The energy was high, lots of people sharing what they're working on, the roadblocks they're hitting, the tools they're loving. It was really insightful.
So our mission here is basically to pull out those key takeaways, the practical bits, for anyone who couldn't make it to that section.
Exactly. And we'll keep it accessible. You don't need to be a deep tech expert to follow along. We'll break it down. No excessive jargon, promise.
Okay, so sit in the scene.
Yeah.
What was the big overarching feeling from that session? For me, it was just, wow, the speed, things are moving incredibly fast.
Oh, definitely. The pace of AI evolution, especially like in content generation, video, images.
Yeah.
It's honestly kind of blowing my mind where we're at.
Right. It felt like everyone was echoing that. And it brings up this real necessity for continuous learning, doesn't it? You can't just learn one tool and be set.
Not anymore. You absolutely have to keep adapting, keep learning. If you're in this field, it's just part of the job now, really.
Yeah. Exciting, but demanding. Now, something else that came up pretty quickly was the financial side, the cost of actually using these AI tools.
The tokens, the credits, people were talking about that. Experimenting is great, but you can find yourself blowing through your credits pretty fast if you're not careful.
Yeah, someone mentioned that specifically, being surprised at how quickly they vanished.
Right. But then the conversation shifted, didn't it, to the value proposition?
It did. Like, okay, maybe it's costly for just messing around, but if you're using it for professional work, something that actually generates revenue,
then it becomes potentially justifiable or even essential. It's an investment in efficiency or capability.
That's a good way to put it. And this ties into another really cool theme that emerged, AI as this democratizing force, especially in content creation.
Totally, like video production, the idea that someone could, sit in a 12 by 12 room and make an entire movie.
That quote really stuck with me. It just paints such a vivid picture of how the playing field is leveling.
It really does. It opens the door for so much more creativity, potentially making whole industries more democratic, letting more voices be heard, which is, pretty exciting.
Definitely exciting. Okay, so speed, cost, democratization. Let's shift gears a bit and get into the more technical, practical stuff that was discussed, the nuts and bolts for people actually building things.
Sounds good. Yeah, there was a lot there. People were talking about specific tools they're using day to day.
Like?
Well, 11 Labs came up for AI voice generation, and Me GPT for some automation tasks.
Yeah.
But the main point wasn't just the specific tools, but how fast they're changing, like constantly updating.
Right, new features popping up all the time, which makes knowing how to use them even more important. That brought up prompting, didn't it?
Oh yeah, big time. The art of prompting. It's not just like a minor skill anymore. Learning different prompting techniques is becoming a really significant practical skill.
It's how you get the AI to actually do what you want it to do effectively, like giving good directions.
Exactly. Clear instructions, better results. Simple as that, but takes practice.
For sure. Then there was the flip side, troubleshooting. When things don't work as expected, that seemed to be a common headache.
Figuring out the root cause. Is it the prompt? Is it the tool? Was there an update I missed? It can be, a bit of a puzzle sometimes. Requires some digging.
Definitely detective work. Now, something for maybe slightly more advanced projects that came up was GitHub. How would you explain that simply?
Okay, so GitHub, think of it like a shared online hard drive specifically for code. But the key thing is it tracks every single change. Who changed what, when. It's called version control.
So you can always go back if something breaks.
Exactly. Or see how a project evolved. It's huge for collaboration. But yeah, you typically need other tools like Visual Studio Code to actually write and run the code stored on GitHub.
Gotcha. So it's storage plus history tracking for code. And it sounded like getting your head around how it works, especially if you're not a coder originally, or it's an ongoing challenge for some.
It can be, yeah. There's a definite learning curve.
Yeah.
But powerful once you get it. Then we sort of moved into APIs.
Right, APIs. Crucial for making chatbots do interesting things. What's the simple analogy?
I like the waiter analogy. Your app or chatbot is the customer. It needs something from another system, say weather data. The API is the waiter who takes the request to the kitchen, the other system, and brings back the information.
Nice. So it lets different software talk to each other, essential for building applications, testing things out.
Mm-hmm. And that led to talking about, external requests, database backends, and specifically RD, retrieval augmented generation.
Okay, RE, what's the key idea there?
So instead of a chatbot only knowing what it was trained on months ago, RA lets it go out and fetch current information from approved sources, like right now. Then it uses that fresh info to generate its answer.
Ah, so it makes the answers much more up-to-date and relevant. That's
Super useful. And speaking of finding things, Hugging Face got a mention too.
Right, Hugging Face. That's like a giant playground or library for AI models, isn't it?
Pretty much. A huge community space where people share AI models, code. You can browse, find models, even test them out sometimes, see if they fit what you need for your project.
Cool. Okay, now, a slightly thorny issue. Data scraping. That definitely sparks some discussion.
Yeah, always does. It's this whole area of automatically pulling data off websites. The big questions are ethical and legal, mostly.
Like, is it okay to scrape a site you're supposed to pay for? Or one that needs a login?
Exactly. Where's the line between gathering public information and, hacking or unauthorized access? It's murky.
Very murky. Terms of service IP rights. It gets complicated fast.
It does. On a slightly related note, there was also talk about some of the built-in limits in AI tools themselves. Safeguards.
Oh, right. Like how some image generators won't create pictures of, say, copyrighted characters.
Yeah.
Or images of children or babies for safety reasons.
Yeah, those internal technical limitations. They're there trying to prevent misuse.
Which is good, though probably not foolproof. Interestingly, though, the LLMs themselves, like ChatGPT, were mentioned as allies in figuring all this technical stuff out.
Definitely. People use them all the time for exploring ideas, getting code snippets, troubleshooting errors. It's like having a tireless, knowledgeable assistant.
A very helpful assistant,
Love it.
and this was stressed, you absolutely have to verify the information they give you.
Crucial point. They're not infallible. They can make mistakes or hallucinate answers. So critical thinking, checking the output, that's still a non-negotiable technical skill.
Good reminder. Oh, and for finding tools, platforms like AppSumo were mentioned as places people look for deals on software.
Yeah, sometimes you can find useful tech tools there.
Okay, so shifting focus slightly again. Bias. That came up, specifically regarding AI-generated images.
Yes, that was a really important point. Someone shared their experience, I think it was, that if you just ask for an image of a female...
It defaults to something really specific.
Yeah. The observation was it often generates big B sexy females. Always. Very overly sexualized features.
Wow, okay.
So the takeaway was you have to be really explicit in your prompt if you don't want that kind of stereotypical sexualized output. And there was speculation, about the training data causing that bias.
That makes sense. The AI learns from the day it sees.
Yeah,
Definitely something to be aware of and actively counteract when prompting.
absolutely. And that leads into the broader ethical and legal maze surrounding AI.
Yeah, beyond just bias, there were concerns voiced about potential misuse, right?
Yeah.
Someone mentioned worrying about AI being used to create fake explicit images using their likeness. P out of my image was the phrase used, I think.
Right. That's a very real fear, and it highlights how current laws are really struggling to keep up with what the technology can do.
Totally. We already talked about the legal gray areas around data scraping and creating unauthorized content, respecting intellectual property like music. It's all very much in flux.
And while those internal limitations we mentioned exist in some tools, the general feeling was that broader regulation is probably needed, but it's slow coming and hard to get right.
So summarizing that part,
Yeah.
legal and ethical implications are just huge areas of uncertainty right now. Lots of ongoing challenges.
Definitely. Which brings us back almost full circle to the challenge of just keeping up with everything.
Yeah, staying afloat in this sea of constant change, the pace we started with.
It's tough. The sheer number of new tools, platforms, updates, it's easy to feel like you're getting spread out too thin trying to learn it all.
That phrase really resonates, trying to chase every shiny new object versus focusing on what's actually useful for your work.
Yeah.
It's a balancing act.
It really is. Figuring out where to focus your learning energy is almost a skill in itself these days.
So let's recap this deep dive into the May 21st session. We hit on the astonishing speed of AI development, the cost factor, the cool ways it's democratizing content.
Right, than the technical stuff. prompting, troubleshooting, understanding things like GitHub, AP size, RAG, Hugging Face.
Plus the tricky areas like data scraping ethics, the built-in safeguards, and how LLMs can help but need verification.
And we touched on that significant issue of bias in image generation and the wider legal and ethical question marks hanging over everything.
And finally, just the challenge of staying current without getting completely overwhelmed.
Exactly. And hopefully understanding these talking points gives you, the listener, a good sense of the conversations happening right now among people building and using these AI tools. It's a snapshot of the current landscape, warts and all.
It really is. So here's a final thought to leave you with. Given this breakneck pace of change, the constant updates, and all the ethical questions swirling around, what fundamental principles should guide how we actually develop and deploy these AI tools going forward? Something to chew on as you continue your own journey with AI.
That wraps up another discussion on the office hours recap. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And as always, come on over and join us in the Discord room every week live at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. See you next week.